Hello, my Earth Mamas. Welcome back to Transformation Tuesday. Today we are talking about one of my favorite topics ever, and that is babies in utero and how absolutely and totally cool they are. So for a long time, really, science thought nothing much was happening in utero simply because we didn't have a way to see into the womb and know. And so it was all very shrouded in mystery. But thankfully, for the past, 40 years, we've had ultrasounds, which has allowed us to peer into the uterus and see what's happening in there. And we know so much more right now. And so I wanted to share today a little bit of that awesomeness with you. And I am hoping that it really helps you to marvel at what your little one can do, because it is pretty incredible. So let's dive right in, okay? Let's see how many of these you've heard of before. Okay, so first of all, babies can hear in utero, and their ear structure forms by about 16 weeks, and they continue to start to notice sounds from their environment. It is actually super, super loud in there. It's about as loud as a vacuum cleaner. Now, they are surrounded in water, so that muffles it, but the placenta is constantly whooshing. So next time you're at your prenatal appointment, make sure you listen to the sound of the placenta because it's really cool. So babies are constantly washed with sound. They hear also the sound of your voice and any noises in the environment. In fact, babies get so accustomed that when there's done a whole bunch of cool studies with newborns, they show that they were paying attention. So let me tell you one that I just recently learned about that I think is so cool. So this study was done with newborns who were only 10 hours old. And what they got someone to speak to the baby and in different languages. And based on how those babies responded, they could tell whether or not mom was speaking in baby's mother's tongue or not. So babies are paying attention the whole way through. They also show preferences for the kind of music that you listen to. And they will startle. So babies have this little startle reflex where they go like that when something new and kind of shocking noise they hear in utero. Well, guess what? They also learned that babies are able to learn in utero, so that when they hear a sound that is new to them the very first time, they will go, oh, like, what is that sound? But then over time, if they keep hearing that sound, the babies will stop startling because they'll just get used to it. So what does that mean for you? That means that if you have a dog that barks and you're pregnant and you're worried that your dog is going to upset your baby, no problem, because your baby is getting used to your dog's barking right now. So it's all good. So those are some really cool things. Now, babies can also see light. They start opening their eyes at about 26 to 28 weeks in your pregnancy. And that doesn't mean your baby is that old, by the way. Did you know that? If you are 26 weeks pregnant, your baby is actually 24 weeks old. Because strangely, we still believe in starting the pregnancy count from the date of your last period, which kind of makes no sense at all because for those first 2 weeks of your pregnancy, you weren't actually pregnant, right? Because conception, when your pregnancy actually starts, is about 2 weeks in. But that's an archaic way that we figured out to measure pregnancy, so it's weird. But yes, your baby is always 2 weeks younger than the number of weeks pregnant that you are. Anywho, so babies start to open up their eyes and they can see light. And actually, if you are past about 28 weeks in your pregnancy, it is great fun to shine a flashlight on your belly because babies will see it. It kind of looks like if you've ever shined a flashlight through your hand and it glows red, that's what it'll appear like, that the red light can filter through all the muscle layers. And so is what it'll look like for your baby. And it is, like I said, great fun because you know what's going to happen? They're going to start wiggling around to see the light. This is actually a way that people sometimes use to turn a baby who is breech. Because if you shine it right down there at the bottom, they'll often turn their little heads because they're curious what's going on down there. So that is a great fun way to play with your baby. And yes, playing with your baby is a real thing, and it's a good thing. Do you ever notice that they kind of poke you and then, oh, I poked the table too. Then you kind of poke them back, and then they kind of wiggle and you wiggle back. That's play. And play spontaneously arises right from the beginning, and it is one of our major points for bonding. And that's true while baby is in utero, and it's also true when they come out. So play is a super awesome thing. So if you're playing with your baby, rubbing your belly, talking to your baby, those are really, really good things. Okay, next, babies taste and smell what you eat. Now, this is not true at the beginning of your pregnancy. You got to wait for the 3rd trimester for this to kick in. But the taste buds mature at about 28 weeks. And what starts to happen in that last trimester is the placenta starts to allow larger food molecules to flow through so that the amniotic fluid takes on the flavors of and the smells of whatever you've just recently eaten. And guess what? Babies prefer it. So if you eat a lot of carrots in your pregnancy, they'll probably really like carrots. If you're a big fan of star anise, that's that black licorice taste, guess what? When they did research with moms who liked that particular flavor, then they offered babies regular milk versus milk that was flavored with just a little bit of that star anise flavoring. Guess what? The babies whose moms like that flavor, those babies like that flavor too. So one of the things that we know from all the cool research that's coming out with babies and with like fetuses in particular is that fetuses show a strong preference for that which they become accustomed to. So whatever you are familiarizing your baby with in your environment, the kind of music, the kind of flavors that you eat, the sound of your voice, the language that you speak, babies are going to show a preference for that when they're on the outside. All right, next thing, babies don't poop in utero. Did you know that? Generally speaking. So they do pee though. In fact, most of the amniotic fluid, by the time they get to like the 3rd trimester, most of that amniotic fluid has gone through their system more than once. So they are constantly swallowing the amniotic fluid. This is warming up their digestive system and then peeing it out. It's all good. It's the way it's supposed to happen, but it can be a little weird. Poop, on the other hand, that just kind of stays inside. They don't create a lot of waste material while they're in utero, but the waste material that they do create stays inside their digestive system. It actually looks like black tar. Generally, it'll come out in their first 3 days of life. It's called meconium. So that's the deal on that strange poop. And the only time they'll release some of it in utero is when they're under stress. So that is something that your team of medical providers will be just watching out for during the birth to make sure the amniotic fluid is clear. And actually, this is important for you to know too. When your amniotic fluid releases, you do want to check it should be clear, okay? Because normally it's clear. The only time it is not clear is when the baby has released some of that tar-like meconium. And generally they only do that when they're under distress. So that is actually a warning sign that if the amniotic fluid has color in it or particles in it, you want to make sure you get to medical support right away. All right, now, here's another cool thing. There is only one cellular layer that separates you from your baby. And this layer is so thin as to allow all of those nutrients to pass from your blood into baby's blood. It's actually a really cool process. And like I said, those larger food molecules when you get to the end of your pregnancy. So babies have never experienced being hungry. It's kind of a crazy thought, hey? So for a newborn, that's actually kind of a shocking part about life on the outside. Because when you are a fetus, you just get a constant stream of nutrients via the blood. So they are always nice and cozy warm. That's another thing that's really kind of shocking to them when they come out to the outside world, is that they can be cold because you keep them at beautiful, easy temperature all the time. And that is the reason actually why it's not recommended to stay in like hot tubs over long periods of time during pregnancy, because baby doesn't have a way to cool themselves off. So that's the story with that. Also the same story for really hot baths. So if you like a warm bath, you can still do it. Just keep it to like a shorter amount of time, like 10 minutes. Or opt for super hot showers. You can go as hot as you like in the shower because it will not change your core body temperature. And that's what we're concerned about in terms of like the baby. Okay, so back to the baby and the baby's blood. So the baby, in order to pick up that blood from you, the maternal blood, right? It has to go, they have to pump a fair amount of their blood into the placenta. In fact, a fetus has about a full third of their total blood volume in the placenta at all times, and it's circulating between the placenta and them. Now, for an adult, if I took a third out of any adult, a third of an adult's blood out of their body, they would like, boom, fall down on the ground. Okay, we would not be functioning with a third of our blood volume missing. So how does that work for a fetus? Well, the secret is that the placenta is doing all of these jobs in the body that normally there are these big organs that are working and taking up a lot of our blood. So typically we have a ton of blood that is in the lungs and in the kidneys and in the liver and in the digestive system. Lots of that blood isn't in those areas while they're in utero, because it doesn't need to be. The lungs aren't working yet. Neither really are the kidneys and liver. They're working, but not totally. In fact, those two organs don't actually fully start functioning until baby is a couple days old. They take a little while to really kick into gear once baby's born. So during that whole pregnancy time, the placenta, I was going to say your placenta, but it's not really yours. It's baby's. It is made of exactly the same cells that the baby's body is made out of. Early on in the process, the cells divide and some of the baby's cells become the placenta and some of them become the baby. And so the placenta really, it's not yours. It belongs to your baby. So anyways, the baby's placenta is doing all of those really important jobs of the lungs, liver, kidneys, and some of the digestive stuff. And so that is why there is so much blood that is in the placenta during pregnancy. Now, during labor, what's going to happen is a lot of that blood is going to get pushed back into baby's body, but not all of it comes by the time babies are born. That's why it is really important to let the cord pulse. If you're interested in learning more about why the cord needs to pulse after birth, there is another video. I will link it down below because that is a big topic. But I have totally gone into it, so no worries. I've got you. I will link that down below afterwards. Okay, keeping going because there's more cool stuff. All right, here's a really interesting thing. Babies' fear/calming response. So this is the two sides of the nervous system. This is the fight or flight over here, and the parasympathetic. This is the rest and digest setting of the nervous system. It's a continuum. Their sort of set point is being set while they're in utero. This is called epigenetics. And this actually sometimes I have a little trouble talking with because there are so many opportunities as moms to feel guilty, right? One of the key, so you all know that I'm big into yoga and I've practiced yoga for a long time. One of the key messages from yoga in terms of its, instructions for life. It's like the 10 commandments of yoga. The very first one is called ahimsa, which means do no harm. And, it's the kind of the practice that when you're doing it to yourself, you want to, do no harm to your body and then, do no harm to others. And one of the things that's really, really hard with mothering is that, even with the best intentions, sometimes we can, say things that hurt our kids. But I think that intention does matter. And anyways, so I know there are like a million opportunities to feel guilty as moms. So sometimes when I'm wading into this area of letting you know, it's hard because I don't want someone who is struggling with anxiety to suddenly feel like, oh my God, now I'm damaging my baby forever, right? But at the same time, when we look at the research, there are consequences to patterning that gets laid down in pregnancy for your baby. So there's a number of studies that show that that when moms are exposed to high levels of anxiety, stress, that influences the amount of how your baby, once they are born, responds to stressors in their environment. And the same level of stressor, if you take two people and you put the same amount of stress on them, someone who in utero was exposed to a lot of stress actually has a higher stress response than someone else. We believe this is about how the hippocampus develops in utero for a baby. And if the mother is exposed to high levels of anxiety during pregnancy, what happens is that the hippocampus develops in a stronger way. The hippocampus is the old part. It's like the oldest part of our brain. It's the fight or flight responses is in that area. And so, like, for example, if a mom has PTSD during pregnancy, her baby is more likely to develop PTSD later on in their lifetime, despite not being exposed to any more traumatic events than others, right? All other things being equal. And the opposite is true as well. And so it's, like I said, it's hard to talk about these things because if you are someone who is struggling with anxiety, I don't want to suddenly make you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm doing permanent damage. Like, on one hand, it's hard because there's a lot of, like, you know, responsibility and influence that we have over these little tiny people. But on the other hand, it does mean that you have the chance to make things really good for your baby. And I think that knowing the impact also can help you really find the help that you need. So if you are listening to this and you are struggling with PTSD or really strong anxiety, please reach out. There are supports available, and find the help that you need, whether that is some, therapy, whether it is some medications. There are many avenues. Use the Realign tool that I've given you for free because I really care about you and I want you to have all the tools. Look at maybe hypnosis. I work with a lot of anxiety and PTSD stuff in my hypnosis and my private practice. So find the things in it that you can do to help make that better. All right. So another really cool thing is that when moms get more support during their pregnancy, social support, they tend to have healthier babies. We think that's related to, like, moms therefore being less stressed and eating and sleeping better. So that is another cool thing. And here's a really other cool thing about fetuses, is not only are they capable of learning in utero, they also seem to be able to remember things. So we've done certain experiments with newborns where we've exposed them to a certain noise, watched their reaction, watch how they learn that noise wasn't something that they needed to startle to. And then they left those fetuses alone for a number of weeks, usually 6 to 8 weeks, brought them back into the lab, and then they played that really loud sound again, and the babies remembered it. So that was something that for the longest time we didn't think was even possible, that not only could babies be learning while they're in utero, but they could also be creating memories. So totally mind-blowing, really. And so all of this, I love, I think it's just fascinating, and I'm so glad that we are learning so much about this. And when new stuff comes across my desk, this is sometimes called the study of fetology, the study of babies in utero. When new stuff comes across my desk, I will make sure that I share it because I think it's amazing. And like I said, I think it helps you to marvel and wonder at this, process of creation that's happening inside of you, because it is flippin' cool. And like, we're just getting started. The more that we learn about them, the more that we learn that babies are active participants in their environment, and they're cognizant, they're aware, and that's really good news, because it means that you don't have to wait for your baby to be born to connect with them, because there is literally somebody there to connect with. So all of that belly touching, talking to your baby in your head, that is all such good stuff. Continue to do it, because like I said before, it lays that foundation for that relationship that you're going to have once baby is born. So I hope you love that. I hope you think that it's just as cool as I thought it is. I am signing off for today. Thanks for joining in live. Thanks for watching the replay, and I will see you back here for another edition next Tuesday. Bye, everyone.